We're going to go ahead and call to order the City of Two Rivers City Council meeting for Monday, March 15th. If you could all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Jamie.
Kurt Andrews.
Here.
Mark Bittner.
Here.
Kay Coach. Here. Darla LeClaire. Here. Bill LeClaire.
Here.
Bonnie Shimulinas. Here. Adam O'Husky.
Here.
And John Cassavant and Jay Remiker are excused.
Yes, and I don't believe they'll be participating remotely. If they do, we'll get a call beforehand. But Jay will be a little late, and John asked to be excused tonight. So thank you for that. Before we go ahead and start the public hearings, which we don't have any, by the way, input from the public, I should say, I'm going to remind everybody that it is a mandate from our governor that masks are to be worn in public buildings, in public areas, and this being one of those. There are extra masks in the back. I think, Chief, you got them by you. If you need to get one, please feel free to do that for consideration for your fellow citizens and for all of us who are coming to the home stretch of this thing, we hope, right? So if you could do that, that'd be great. We'll move right into then the input from the public. How we're going to handle that is we're going to ask those folks who are in the auditorium or the hall tonight to please step up to the podium, my right, your left. Their microphone is there. I believe it'll be on. If it's not, we'll assist you. Thank you. Please state your name and address and give us any input you have on what's on the agenda tonight or anything you'd like to have on future agendas. We will start with the folks here, and then Jamie will go to the phones and do that as well. And I'll read the phone number when we're ready to go there. We're going to try to limit it to 3 minutes so we can make sure that we kind of get through the agenda. If you're on a roll, we'll be a little bit more flexible. So we'll do what we need to do to make sure we're moving this thing along. But it's input from the public, and I'm asking anybody who wants to say anything, please come up to the podium. My right, your left, name and address, and you can do it at this time.
Hello. Good evening. My name
is
Ned Guyette. I'm the current president of the Board of Trustees for the Leicester Public Library. And thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I just have some brief comments. As is maybe known by everyone by now, the library is slated to open May 3rd in our phase one of our opening plan. I just wanted to be very clear that this date was determined and unanimously agreed upon by the Board of Trustees. As the governing body of the library, this is our responsibility to make this determination. And we do, of course, follow the input of Jeff, the director. But ultimately, it is the Board of Trustees that have made this decision. As the governing body, it's our responsibility to determine and assess the best date to open. And we utilize information from the director. And of course, because the pandemic is still a very fluid situation, the opening date could be subject to revision if warranted. And if some of you or all of you have been following the data on the state site, unfortunately, we have had an increase in the last week of COVID positivity test rates. At our last library board meeting, that number was down, I think, around 8% positivity rate. Now it's unfortunately jumped back up to 14%. So I just mentioned this in the realm that it is possible that that date may have to be pushed forward. We reevaluate this every month at our meetings, so we'll be reevaluating in April. But hopefully we can maintain this schedule. So when we do open for walk-in service, there will be a mandatory mask policy. I know there's been, there's been some political division. People don't like wearing masks. I hate wearing a mask. I don't know anybody who loves wearing a mask. But we do this out of compassion for one another. We do it to protect ourselves, and we do it to protect other folks. The library staff is literally putting their lives on the line to serve the public. And we hope that there's enough compassion and empathy on the part of folks who are coming to the library to just comply with that policy, please, and wear a mask. I also understand that Council President Andrews and Adam had an opportunity to visit the library last week. And I would just like at some point when you have the opportunity to get your feedback, see what your feelings are about the library.
We'll gladly do that. I've got part of tonight's agenda. We did a recap, and I'll share that with the public, as well as Adam will have a point of view as well to weigh in on. It was a very good meeting. Thank you for inviting us again, Jeff.
Yeah. And of course, the library and the Board of Trustees always appreciates the support, and we need the support of the council and the public. And we know a lot of people are really frustrated. Nobody wants the library open more than the folks that work at the library. So we appreciate the patience, and let's make this reopening a joyful time. There's been enough stress. So I just hope people will respect and regard the employees of the library. Please wear a mask. We do have the support of local law enforcement. If we have difficulties with compliance, hopefully it would never come to that. But please help out the library staff. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we look forward to the library being open. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Stanley Palmer, 331 23rd Street, in a place called Two Rivers.
Hi, Stanley.
Yeah, hello, good to be here. Thank you, Ned, for leading off. We just wanted, I'm on the library board, and we just wanted to come here and give a strong endorsement for the work of what Director Jeff Dawson and, if I may say so, my colleagues on the board have done. As you know, we're coming to the end game of this year that we prefer to forget. It's called 2020. We're in the 8th inning now, maybe, of this long game. We're all tired of the way we've had to live to reduce the amount of damage across the country that's been done, not just in Wisconsin, but the United States. And as you well know, it's a global pandemic. I've been very impressed by how Jeff and his staff took the opportunity of having to shut down just about exactly 12 months ago and do something positive. In addition to continuing to make checking out of books and anything else that the staff could do with what we call curbside service, whether it's in restaurants or libraries, to try to stumble along and keep things going for the general public and to try to keep things safe, but also have some of the things that are available in normal times available in this past year. So I just wanted to give a very positive endorsement as we reopen now, May 3rd. As Ned said, conditional on things getting better instead of us having another surge upwards. We all hope that that's not going to happen. But I just wanted to come tonight to add my name to endorse the positive behavior that Jeff has done for many, many months now, and his wonderful staff. He's got wonderful people working there. So I will now hand over to anybody else who wants to say a couple of words.
Thank you, Stanley. Anybody else want to come and comment on either this subject or any other subject on the agenda tonight, or anything you'd want to put on future agendas? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Mary Dawson. I live at 4314 Tannery Road. And I like to think that we live in a community of helpers. I wear a mask to protect you, to protect the folks at the Piggly Wiggly and the Pick and Save or my doctor's office. I want to be a helper and not unknowingly spread the virus to your business. I look around here and I don't know who has cancer, heart disease, or some other medical condition that would put them at a higher risk, so I wear a mask. It's not that much to ask. You go out, you wear a mask, you take it off when you get home. Easy. At the last city council meeting, a meeting held in a building that requires visitors to wear masks, there were people who weren't wearing them. What kind of message does that send? I think it does a disservice to everyone who have worked so hard to keep others safe. The mask mandate was meant to protect our health and safety. We have rules regarding fish cleaning stations, animal waste, garbage, and seatbelts, all for health and safety. Wearing a mask at a city council meeting or the grocery store or any place that requires it is for the public good, to help. I feel our city leaders should be the model of the helper. Let's work together to keep each other safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Jamie, we're going to go to the phones. I'm going to remind everybody of the phone number to call in. Again, state your name and address. The phone number is 920-793-5534. We got to get used to dialing, by the way, our area codes. It's going to change in Wisconsin. 920-793-5534. Please call in with anything that's either on the agenda or you'd like to have on future agendas. We'll go ahead and be quiet and let you call. A few more minutes. It might be in a snowstorm down south. Okay, a reminder, by the way, to the public and anybody in the building as well, you can always send any questions or comments or communication to any one of us on council. Our phone numbers and our addresses, believe it or not, are in, and our emails are in on the city website, tworivers.org. So feel free to do that, and we'll gladly take your answers and see if things can be put on the agenda as they should be. So I'm going to move to number 7, letters and other communication from citizens, from any of the council members. Kay?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the website, so mine is in person or on the phone.
Okay, in person or on the phone for
Yeah, and I've had 3 separate complaints on the same thing. This is for the chief of police. On the corner of 34th and Forest Avenue, the speeding through there is obscene. People trying to cross that street on foot can't do it. I've had, one was even the mailman that complained about that particular corner not being able to cross the street. The other thing I'd like to do is send a kudo out to Marv from the Medicine Shop. Medicine Shop was the first place in the city of Two Rivers to administer vaccinations. And there are an awful lot of elderly and what kind of people in town that can only get around on foot or on a bicycle. So I really do commend him for being the first one to offer this to these people and me. That's it.
That's great. And by the way, I think he just put on Facebook that he's looking, if you need to sign up for vaccinations.
Did he?
Yeah, you can actually check him out and see if he's got supply, and he'll.
It's painless.
Yes. Okay,
If you
that's
didn't
great.
go, Adam, you go get a shot.
My sister would beg to differ with you, but
Any other comments from any of the folks? Bonnie?
I would just like to say that I got I guess we all did, from a citizen wanting us to speak up against the library, and I just wanted to make a comment about it. I don't know, maybe you don't agree with the closing of the library, but it's run by a board, and it's just what we've always done. This council allows the heads of departments to run their departments, which I think is good. I also want to say that other libraries in other states have their eye on Mr. Dawson. So even if you don't like some of the decisions he makes, a lot of those decisions he makes are good because other libraries would take him. And also, don't forget you can go on to the board. And that's not a bad reason to go on to a board if you don't agree with something. That's it.
Thank you, Bonnie. Anybody else get letters or communication? Thank you, Stanley. I need we're in this session, part of it right now. Can you hold on? This is for council communication, first of all. Do you have something you wanted to?
Respond to Ms. Coach's comment about the speeding, if you'd like or not.
On the speeding? Yes, as long as it was brought up through a citizen, go ahead and respond.
Okay. Yes, that is a fairly common complaint, and it is something that we try and watch routinely, but I will make sure that we get it added to Exit Patrol. And then within the next couple of weeks, we will also be getting our speed trailers out, and we'll put one of those up in that area as well. That seems to help and slow traffic down as well.
Is there some reason why it's predominantly that particular intersection?
The thing I can say just that I think that causes the speeding, not necessarily just at that intersection, but really the kind of that whole stretch.
34th Street, yes.
Right, but the whole stretch really from, say, more like 30th all the way up to 45th Street, it's a very long stretch, it's wide, and so when you have long stretches like that and a wide roadway, people tend to go a little bit faster because just the visual cues when you're driving, it makes it seem like you're going a little slower than maybe you think you should be. And so sometimes perceptually people will drive a little faster, but also it's a long stretch and people want to get to point A to point B, and they feel like it's just too slow and they drive fast. They shouldn't be, but they do.
Well, I think getting it out there will be a good thing to get the speed things. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other communications from citizens to any council members? And Bonnie, yes, we did all get that one. Thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to number 8. Council reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Anybody?
I can talk about EAB. Our last meeting was very productive, and we had Julia Nordyke from Sea Grant, which is out of UWGB, talking to us about green infrastructure. One of the things that we have started doing is recording our meetings, especially if there's a speaker, and we're going to put a position out there online. I got to talk to Greg and then also to our IT guys and see if we could have a link so that people can, if they aren't able to attend in person, they can at least watch the video. And because there's a lot of really good information that's coming out of EAB that I think would interest a lot of people across the board.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kurt, I have one thing
Yep.
that came out public. Utility
facilities meeting, talking about the trees on the streets that we're repairing.
Yep.
And maybe there was some confusion about who was responsible for the trees that are in the terrace. But the trees that are in the terrace are the responsibility of the city. Anybody, but try to keep all the trees as we can, but that is the responsibility of the city. The trees between the sidewalk and the curb are the responsibility of the city.
And I think we also talked, if I recall, about possibility of replanting some of those if we can with any kind of budget we might have on either, was it 24th and 25th Street, something like that, of two projects? Okay. That would again be the responsibility of the city, correct? Okay. I'll have two things to update from our boards. One is just to let everybody know we are working on a marketing plan. There's a ton of activities going on in Two Rivers this summer. So we are working on what we're going to do to help promote that, what we're going to do to make sure that those especially city-supported events are promoted so we can get people to enjoy that, people both in the city as well as people in the surrounding communities. So we're working on that. That'll be ready to present in April. As well as we are also, as one of the events we're doing again, is we've put together a committee for Celebrate Two Rivers. That's going to be August 28th. That'll be the second version of Celebrate Two Rivers. We did the inaugural one last year. It will not have a 25-minute video this year, so all of you can be happy with that. But there will be a lot of other activities, so that committee is coming together. We have our first meeting is on the 30th. We'll post that, so if you want to come out and join us to figure out how you can help us have a wonderful event again at Walsh Field on that Saturday before the Kite Fest. That is coming out of the Branding and Marketing Committee. The other thing I went ahead and promised I would go ahead and read, and Adam, you're okay with me reading this recap of the library visit we did?
Absolutely.
So last Friday, following the discussion regarding the library and being open and not open, Jeff invited both Adam and myself to get more insights into the work that's currently being done at the library, what work has been done since we've closed, and how they're handling things during the pandemic. I got to tell you, so I'm going to read exactly the letter I sent back to Jeff on the 5th, following our visit. I just want to thank you for taking the time to allow Adam and myself to gain more insights into the extraordinary work you're doing at our library during the pandemic. The adjustments your team have made, requiring extra time and effort to service the community while closed, is impressive. Well done. We appreciate the commitment you're making to provide those you can with exceptional resources and learning opportunities while thinking outside the box during this crazy, crazy time. As I stated, making more folks aware of what's available and the efforts to provide a modified high level of service needs to continue to be promoted and communicated. The building looks great. The thinking behind the layout flow, the accommodations, the new flooring, the drive-through services, and preparing for a safe opening was impressive. I appreciate the time and getting the behind-the-scenes tour of what is a world-class operation. Thanks again, Jeff, and please let us know what we can do to continue to help support and promote our library. Just wanted you guys to know that's what came out of that. So let's move on to the city manager reports. Oh, by the way, hold on a second. Anything you want to add, Adam?
The stuff that they're doing at the library really is incredible. The services that they're still providing for the youth and the families, I mean, they build all these little packets that are stored almost throughout the library to be prepared for the drive-through service. It is remarkable that they are continuing to offer those kind of services to the residents of the city. We'd all like to see it open earlier, as I responded to an email earlier today and copied Mr. Dawson in. We'd all like to see it open tomorrow, but the reality is it just can't happen that quick. But May 3rd seems to be a good day, and I'll give the library a good chance to get their drive-through service going, because that is not in the same room where they're doing curbside. So there's a lot of moving pieces that have to get moved so that they can still accommodate the folks that want curbside, which will now be drive-through service. So there's a little time there, and that gives them a month and a half to get that all situated and organized and make sure they're offering the best services to everyone. So, yeah, May 3rd sounds good. Good job.
Thank you, guys. Greg, we're going to serve it over to you. If no one else has anything else they want to say, we're going to the city manager report.
Absolutely, and thank you, Kurt. I would mention, it's that time of year. I took one Facebook message and one call this weekend from citizens on litter and yard trash issues that have emerged from the snow now and are evident. Certainly be very comfortable reaching out to the city manager's office or the building inspections and zoning administrator's office with those issues. Addressed concerns that were expressed about properties near Roosevelt and School, in the area of 13th and Parkway, several other locations around town. So, hey, stuff kind of builds up over the winter, especially when there's some snow cover and we don't notice it as much. We're doing our best with between the efforts of the code enforcement officer and the police department to get on top of those things. For my city manager's report tonight, first of all, I want to share yet again, no, this isn't a rerun with showing the smiling face of our old friend Jim Toddy, the late Jim Toddy, who served 25 years on city council. We've announced previously bequests that Jim, who passed away last year, had left for the city. I'm not remembering the dollar amount, but it was around $45,000. Bequests to the senior center. And last week, the city clerk's office received notification, as did the police and fire departments, of insurance proceeds in the amount of $73,898.54 each to those departments from a very humble man that I know took a lot of pride in his service, which totaled over 25 years through his different stints on the city council. Later on the agenda, of course, we're asking city council to acknowledge the bequests with the understanding that the police and fire chiefs will be coming back with their proposals for making good lasting use for the community of those very generous donations. So kudos. And I had a limited number of photos I had access to of Jim, but he also was a participant, a veteran of our Citizens Academy program, and had come in at times to help with the police cadets, formerly the Police Explorers group. So we'll be sure to highlight those as well, because Jim believed in service to community. The next meeting I listed on the agenda, but I'm going to list the next two meetings, at least that I now have our consultant scheduled for the splash pad and ice skating rink planning committee. We, based on a polling of the members last week, have determined the next meeting will be April 8th at 6 p.m. And because we are getting a later start on these additional meetings, I've also, with our planning consultant, design consultant, booked the next Thursday 4 weeks out from that to get together for the committee. The major task on April 8th, the representative from Parkitecture will be here for the day evaluating 3 different sites that were identified by the committee, those being Central Park East, Washington Park, and Neshota Park, presenting an assessment of each of those sites to the committee and seeking feedback on a favored site or sites. Depending on how that decision process goes at committee, the next meeting would be to bring back some conceptual plans for the preferred site or sites. So that notice will go out to the committee members tomorrow, and again, there are 2 dates there.
Hey, Greg, that is a public meeting, correct? So
that is a public meeting, and
anybody can attend if they want to come and see what's going on?
Yes, and we are streaming those on Zoom. We have a list of interested members of the public, people that asked to be on the committee and weren't appointed, and other folks in the community that have shown an interest, and they are being sent notice of the meetings as well as the agenda, the Zoom link. Kind of old news we've covered tonight, but significant news just the same. The Leicester Public Library Board does plan to reopen the library building for inside services, barring any nasty variants doing anything scary, I would say. They have a better written policy than that. But with our pandemic situation, I think we all share the hope that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And again, we would just give a lot of credit to the staff you see in the photo there, our children's and adult services coordinators, Terry Ale and Chris Hamburg, very capable team that Jeff heads up over there. And curbside pickup is going strong. The packets for kids for reading at home and other things, very well received. And Jeff, I don't know if you had really any other comments, but I welcome them.
Thanks, Greg, and thanks, everyone. Just real briefly, you heard a lot tonight about the library and the reopening plan. I just wanted to go over real quickly in summary. Even though we're opening the building, it's not a full-blown open. Our building hours will be what we are now, Monday through Friday, 10 to 5 p.m., and Saturdays, 10 to 2 p.m. Face mask covering mouth and nose will be required for all patrons ages 3 and up. Staff does reserve the right to not serve anyone without a face mask during this phase 1 reopening period. Computer usage will be limited to 1 hour per day per patron. Patrons are to limit library visits to 1 hour per day. Library building capacity limited to 45 patrons. Group gatherings, study groups, play dates, and meetings are not allowed. Seating is limited, and we are employing physical distancing throughout the entire building. A couple services we will not be providing. I don't want this to be all downer, but just a reminder, it's not a normal opening. In-person programming, meeting room reservations and use. We've removed all the soft seating. We've removed toys, games, youth computers, jigsaw puzzles, and coffee. Remove computer headphones. We will shut down the drinking fountain. Our one-on-one computer assistance will last no longer than 5 minutes per patron, and we will not be accepting volunteer applications until we move into phase 2, which is opening it up for everybody, wide open. And as it was mentioned before, during this period, phase 1 period, curbside services will continue as they have been since April of last year. Thank you all very much for the opportunity. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks so much, Jeff. On the topic of reopening, I did want to share that the Hamilton Wood Type and Printing Museum reopened to the public this past Saturday, March 13. So again, starting to see that, we're seeing that continued return to normalcy. Winter parking ban is officially over. Current ordinance has the parking ban for the period December 1 to March 15. I would note that with the weather conditions that we had this past winter, I hope we can say past winter as I look out there, enforcement was suspended for a total of 45 days out of the normal 105-day period from December 1 to March 15. That was pretty much at the front end from December 1st till the 28th. Enforcement started the morning of the 29th. And then enforcement was lifted with notice to the public again, February 26 to March 15, as of 6 a.m. this morning. March agenda is kind of filling up for work session at the March, more likely the April work session, as council has requested, address the winter parking ordinance and regulations well in advance of next year. I would point out, though, that I think the flexibility shown this winter, and to be honest, there were a few more days we could have had the ban lifted, does show that with some attention, the current ban can work and still be a reasonable approach. We'll have more discussion on that. Nice thing is the street sweepers have pretty well been able to make their rounds around town. And a lot of that stuff, if you're in a neighborhood where your concrete street was sealed with tar on the seams last year, that's not somebody's errant dog, if you look real quick, that left all that stuff that's on your terrace. It's some of the tar patching from the seams. There's a fair amount of it evident around town. Little Made in Two Rivers update that Bill Keel from Karen Net first shared last week, and then we shared on the City Hall Facebook page. March Madness and all of the venues this year are in the Hoosier State, Indiana locations for the men's NCAA basketball finals, and every net on every rim in the March Madness is a product of Karen Net Company here in Two Rivers. So maybe a little bit of trivia, but that's way cool when it comes to a Two Rivers product. And as Bill says, and maybe it's a supply-demand thing too, can't wait to see them get cut down. So I don't know if he's rooting for Gonzaga or who he's rooting for, but that's Wisconsin's been a little disappointment, but I won't go there. So kudos to Karen Net, Made in Two Rivers. Staffing updates. I think I've mentioned each of these before. Jamie's been busy working with our department heads in recruitment, initial screening, and interviews. There were a total, as of right now, the deadline is actually this Friday, right, for police secretary or utilities. I'm sorry, police, that's already passed. 27 applications. Full-time administrative assistant in utilities, if I'd have read till the next line, that is open until this Friday. We're looking to bring somebody on there pending the retirement of our very capable utilities administrative assistant later this year. We completed recruitment as of last Friday for the part-time cemetery and parks maintenance position. I mentioned that last time. That is in an effort to backfill to some extent for a full-time cemetery parks maintenance position that was eliminated in 2020. This would be a year-round position averaging on the order, a little bit less than, I think about 28 hours a week. I was going to say a little less than 30 hours a week without health care benefits, but with prorated vacation, sick leave, that sort of thing. And there's been a response to that and what looked like some good candidates for the position. And you've already met the replacement for Phil Dassey, our wastewater mechanic. Phil does retire after 13 years, taking care of the mechanicals down at the wastewater treatment plant on March 23rd, and we wish him well. I think he came to us from Hamilton in a similar maintenance capacity, and he's done a wonderful job down at the wastewater plant. Comprehensive plan update. The Plan Commission at each of its regular monthly meetings, I expect this will be for most of the year, is including a component on comp plan update. And last week, Monday, we reviewed economic development information with our representative from Bay Lake Regional Planning who joined the meeting via Zoom. The next meeting on April 12 will touch on or will address the transportation and utilities component of the plan. And again, just a screenshot of the front page of our current comprehensive plan. Comprehensive land use plan's primary tool is to form a logical basis for planning and zoning decisions of the city. They typically do have a 20-year forward look, but as a matter of best practice, they are updated on a 10-year basis. So we're maybe a year late, but we're right about on schedule with updating our comprehensive plan. Whoa, what did I just do there, Rick? Do I just click on my slide that I was in? Okay, thank you. Whew, that scared me. Okay. Next up, I just wanted to share, I had it listed on the agenda, recent discussions with representatives of the National Ice Age Scenic Trail. The Ice Age Trail, Manitowoc County component, comes in from the west, from Valders, through Manitowoc, through the south side of Two Rivers, actually comes down. There's a wonderful section. If you've never walked it, I'd encourage you to check in the Woodland Dunes segment behind the Aurora Medical Office Building out on Memorial Drive. There's a trailhead there with signage and parking facilities. You end up out on, I believe, 10th Street, the dead end portion of it, west of Columbus. You would think you were in a hardwood forest up north somewhere. It is just beautiful back there. It then goes down 12th Street to the intersection of 12th and Washington and hangs a left across the Washington Street Bridge en route to Neshota Beach and on up to Point Beach State Forest. The point is, at that intersection at 12th and Washington, it's right across the street from our new, still fairly new South Breakwater Trail. And part of improving that linkage will consist of, first of all, making sure that we are in the various guides and publications put out by the Ice Age, National Ice Age Scenic Trail Group. They have an app for trail users, which is really cool. I'm told, I haven't used it yet, but which does highlight activities in the communities along the trail. And so we want to be out there in any of their print and electronic publications. We also want to make sure that if someone's walking the trail and passing through that intersection by McDonald's, they realize that they can walk out to the end of the pier on Lake Michigan nearby, so that designation as a spur trail will help. And on the back of one of the 4 by 8 foot interpretive signs, the one on fishing in Two Rivers, which is up now by the fish mural, on the back side of that, certainly by Memorial Day weekend, we plan to install maps showing the bike trail routes from Mariners to Raleigh Point and the other connecting trails, the area segment of the Ice Age Trail, and just mark the water and the water trails on the rivers for canoeing and kayaking. So there's 3 nice blanks on the back side of that sign. We look forward to doing that as well. We also had some discussion, and I know this may seem like kind of micro stuff, but thousands of people use Mariners Trail every year, and many of the visitors don't know that they could just cross Taylor Street and access that segment of the Ice Age Trail that was mentioned. So enjoyed that discussion with a couple of their staff members last week. Not listed on your agenda, but also in the way of wayfinding and greeting visitors. You're aware that the local American Legion post was successful in getting approval for a state of Wisconsin historic marker. That has been installed back in December, as shown in the photo here, south of the restroom building, under a little roof structure which had no apparent function other than to be a roof that didn't cover anything. I think there used to be a bulletin board there. Out at the Woodland, as we now know, at the Spirit of the Rivers wayside. City crews assisted with the install there. This gives the history of how in 1928, I forget what the highway was then, it wasn't Highway 42 at the time, was designated as American Legion Memorial Drive, and that was in honor of those lost in World War I, along with the planting of American elms, I think a couple thousand of them along the drive. Of course, we've lost those to Dutch elm. So I know our local Legion's very proud of this accomplishment. You'll be getting notice of a formal dedication later in the spring. The nice thing with DOT is, while they won't countenance a directional sign on State Highway 42 indicating the Spirit of the Rivers Monument is ahead, we tried that one, they are very supportive of informational signage telling you there's an historic marker ahead, much like we have half a mile outside either direction from the Ice Cream Sundae marker down here. So the DOT did confirm today that they hope by early summer, at their expense, they will have those signs up advising there's an historic marker. And then at the driveway entrance, both for northbound and southbound traffic, there'll be supplemental signage indicating to turn there. So kind of a dual purpose. It'll point out the real reason, which is there's a historic marker for Memorial Drive, but also it will, I think, help people be directed to the Spirit of the Rivers as well. So looking good out there. We do have estimates when the time comes, by the way, to put one of those signature Parks red metal roofs on that building. It's not quite there yet, but Jared Rohr and his crew, as part of their planning, have got that pricing together. Videos promoting the city. These are additional short videos related to the branding. I didn't trust myself to try to share them with you tonight because something usually goes wrong when that happens, but they are being shared on Facebook, explore2rivers.com, and the city's Facebook page. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, there was a release last week, and you can find it on the city Facebook page. I've got to double-check Water and Light's Facebook page. Brian, you might know. It will be shared shortly. And the city website, but a video about 5 minutes long, 4.5, 5 minutes long, on where our water comes from. It was put together and narrated by Whitney Freilich, our part-time communications coordinator, with a few cameos by Ross Blaha, our water and superintendent, and some good information, I think, presented in sort of a light and entertaining way about where your water comes from here in Two Rivers and how it's treated, how it's delivered to you. We hope to be doing those ultimately for all of our city services and departments. Don't want to monopolize Whitney's time, which is limited, and take her away from some of the ECDAB and tourism things, but there's also a communication piece there when it comes to city utilities and city services. Some busy activities coming up that I wanted to highlight. All of them, taking into account the need for distancing and protective measures, but nonetheless, it's still St. Patrick's Day on Wednesday, and the Senior Center is offering corned beef and cabbage to go from 4 to 6 on the 17th. I would call the Senior Center. I don't know for sure when the cutoff is on reservations, but I can vouch for their corned beef and cabbage. It's great. There is an Easter cookie sale 9 to 3 on April 1st at the Senior Center. They will be offering both decorated and undecorated cookies in case you want to get creative with them at home. Drive Up Pancakes with the Bunny on April 3rd, Saturday, April 3rd, day before Easter. Also over at the Senior Center, I would expect Terry is here. Yeah, she's out in the hall. That's right. That'd be there. And then the Two Rivers Optimists will again be working with Parks and Rec for the Easter egg hunt Saturday, April 3rd, 11 to noon over at Neshota Park. And they might be harder to find because, you know, those colored eggs show up real well when it's snow covered over at Neshota, like it is a lot of years. The Two Rivers Fire Department will be doing their 9th annual fish boil on Friday, April 2nd. That is drive-through only this year. They've got things set up so folks can safely enter off 21st Street from the west. And we'll actually, Chief Denzi in here. Yeah, Chief, you want to come talk up your fish boil a bit? I would point out it's been 9 years come this summer since Andrew Zimmern from Bizarre Foods and the Travel Channel came here for a fish boil, but there's some of the celebrity photos there. But the fish boil is every bit as good.
Good evening. So I'd like to cordially invite all of you, come one, come all, to a fish boil. It's going to be a drive-through. We're actually going to be doing a drive-through down 22nd Street, around Madison, and then coming out 21st Street. Going to have plenty of fish, raffles, all sorts of fun stuff. Guys are really excited. I know we had to postpone it last year. It's usually something they use to raise a lot of funds, and all the funds that the union actually raises goes right back into the community. So they have a scholarship that they usually give, and they make donations and things like that. So great time. It's going to be had by all. So please come. It would be great.
Good stuff there. Let's see. Yes, we do have the spring election coming up on Tuesday, April 6th. We'd remind you again, polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. All 4 normal polling locations are open. I shouldn't say normal because indeed we have now relocated at a recent election the word 7 and 8 polling location, the South Side polling location, as we'd call it, from Koenig School to the J.E. Hamilton Community House in the Behringer Room. And our city clerk, Jamie Jackson, reports we have 6,663 registered voters, and at least as of Friday, 670 absent voter ballots had been sent out. There are 3 city council positions up for election, as you well know, with 3 declared candidates on the ballot, plus the ability for folks to do write-in if they wish to. Jamie, what else is on the ballot for the next election? You've been interviewing folks with the police all day. I'm sure you got it.
Right. We have a race for state superintendent of public instruction. There's another race at the state level, which I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Judicial race of some kind,
I think so.
Yep.
Court of Appeals judge, maybe. And then there is a school board member for 2 a handful of houses in the Manitowoc School District as well that have a school board race and referendum.
Okay, very good. So shouldn't be a super busy day at the polls given history, but encourage folks to get out and vote and again continue to show respect for your fellow voters and the poll workers by masking and taking appropriate measures. Thank you. Last council meeting, we heard from State Senator Jacques and State Representative Sortwell about their continued efforts to support legislation that would make it possible to take clean Lake Michigan sand, like gets dredged every 4 or 5 years from between our piers on Lake Michigan, and make beneficial reuse of it in all instances, provided it's clean, whether the Corps of Engineers does the dredging, and we know when the Corps does it, they don't need a state DNR permit, and they pick up the clean sand from between the piers, and they pump it over to what this past summer we called the New Beach, and people thought was wonderful. We also learned in 2016 when the city did the harbor dredging with a lot of help from the state's harbor assistance program that the state or a local unit letting a dredging contract has to get a state DNR approval, and the current regulations define that material that we call clean lake bottom sand as solid waste. And while there is the ability under the state regulations to allow placing that material back on the lake bottom. The practice is they don't. So our last dredging job, about $665,000 contract to remove about 25,000 cubic yards, of sand. Out of that $650,000, over $300,000 was associated with transloading the sand from barges into dump trucks, hauling it to an upland disposal site, dumping it there, driving the dump trucks back, about 1,100 20-yard dump truck loads for a small dredging job. Contrast that with last summer with a Corps contract, which was about $1 million total, removed 3 times as much sand, every bit of the outer harbor sand, the clean stuff, pumped over the pier with hydraulic dredging, and people enjoyed it. So we actually, I got a little afield there, but the very next day after Andre and Shay appeared at the last council meeting, one of Andre's staff, a legislative aide, called and said there's a hearing in front of the Senate Labor and Regulatory Reform Committee that's chaired by Senator Noss out of Whitewater. Could you come over and have something to say again on this? So it was a little weird. First, we had to wait for someone to come out of the Capitol building because it's on full lockdown. And Madison doesn't look like any time I've ever seen it, just with how deathly quiet it was. But I thought the testimony offered by Bill and Darla and myself was well received by the committee. They get it. This seems to be support, at least among that committee, for either the DNR doing something within its rule-making authority to better address this, or there being a legislatively imposed solution. There is a companion bill in the Assembly, and we don't know what the schedule might be there for it going through the hearing process. But just wanted to let you know it was fairly short notice, but we were up early and over there and continuing to try to fight the good fight on the beneficial reuse. I don't know if Darla and Bill, you have any comments. One thing that I always think is worth pointing out on this legislation, and we really appreciate Andre and Shay sponsoring it, is Mother Nature every year moves around tens of thousands of cubic yards of lake bottom sand and puts it in different places on the lake bottom without needing a permit, and we've lived with that for a long time. Whereas we go out there and make efforts that are kind of meager by comparison and have to go through all of this. And the other thing, then I'll shut up for a minute in case you have comments. We're from here. We drink that water. Our kids play in that water. We harvest fish from that water as sport or commercial fishers. We're not about wanting to see the health of this community endangered. So, like I said, it was quiet, but they weren't in a big rush, and I felt we got a good audience with them.
We did, yeah, once we got into the building.
Yes.
One of the things that, and Bill can tell you about the points that he touched on, but some of the things that we had just been down there, what was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah, October 19th.
Yeah, and spoke in front of, it was their environmental board.
On the House side, Assembly side, yeah.
Yeah, and that I thought had gone very, very well, and then they got stuck on the issue of the ever-present philosophical question, what really is sand? So we kind of got mired. We got kind of got stuck on something like that. This audience was a little bit more, I would say, common sense and receptive. And because what we're asking for, or what we were presenting, was the fact that if we have to truck all of the dredgings off-site to go to a specially designed, basically a sand dump, that, and the last time we dredged, it was over 1,100 round trips. That is a heck of a lot of wear and tear on our roads. And just think of the carbon emissions that were, let loose to transport clean sand from point A to point B. So there was many other things that we touched on. I think we touched on every issue that we possibly could that is associated with this, with the dredging. And Bill?
I was just going to add, I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I understood taken away from them was they're thinking, how does all this sand get into our harbor? The river should be running out into the lake, and it should just be river sediment. They don't understand that we have the huge surge coming in all the time. Of course, the river runs out when it rains. Most of the time, it's just a big hole for Lake Michigan to fill in, and that's what happened. I think, hopefully we made.
You're right. The thought was, well, it's a river. It runs into the lake, so must be it takes stuff there. When you realize when you stand out and watch those pier heads on a stormy day, there's a whole lot more energy coming this way than those rivers ever push the other way. So we'll see. You know, we hope that the Corps of Engineers always and forever does dredging, both routine and emergency, on our harbor, but we know that we have reason to be concerned about that funding being there in the future. So we'll keep you posted. Thank you. The other significant thing that we're all just kind of waiting to see how it shakes out is with the passage of the so-called American Rescue Plan Act. It includes a significant amount of money for counties and sub-county units, cities, towns, villages, $132 billion for counties and municipalities. I think the states make up the rest of the $300 billion that's earmarked for state and local government in this bill. Out of that, 61.5 for cities, towns, and villages. 45.5 billion is for municipalities over 50,000. The communities that are typically community development block grant entitlement cities, and those dollars will be allocated, as I understand it, and as this article that came out, you should have all gotten this via email today from the League of Municipalities. That will be allocated by way of the CDBG funding formula. If you're an under 50,000 municipality like Two Rivers, which means we only get CDBG when we apply competitively for a grant, the distribution of $19.6 billion to municipalities under 50,000 will be allocated based on population. So we're continuing to watch this closely. The League is getting stuff out, the Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities. This entire bill, I heard a statistic this weekend, not taking a position on it, but it's about 14% of annual U.S. domestic product and GDP, and that's hard to even get your head around. If this municipal allotment was done on a straight per capita basis around the country, my back of the envelope calculation says, a Two Rivers ought to get on the order of $2 million. I'm sure there'll be more twists and turns. Money seldom comes that straight from the federal government. But you'll note in this article from the League and other articles you see on it, what can it be spent on when it does arrive? To backfill for revenue losses attributable to COVID. And quite honestly, we're pretty fortunate. We aren't in an area that has a heavy dependency on entertainment, food service, tourism. Some of those areas got clobbered. We did okay last year, and please God, if the pandemic doesn't resurge, we should be okay. The state of Wisconsin has done well, got a surplus, added to the rainy day fund. So if you don't need it for backfilling a hole in your budget or spending for extraordinary expenses responding to the pandemic, then it can be spent for water, wastewater, or broadband infrastructure. So we'll watch that. That could make the next 2 to 3 years of infrastructure investment easier, to do some catching up. We'll be looking into that, along with things like a TIF amendment that we've discussed and is identified in the budget, some other things. So stay tuned on how the share that flows to Two Rivers works. We'd remind folks again, Kurt mentioned there's a big summer full of activities coming up. Your single best, most up-to-date source on that is exploretworivers.com. There have been some formatting changes out there. You now, when you go to the site, can select either a listing of events by individual event listings, or you can look at a weekly or monthly calendar. So however you prefer to tackle the information. And that is all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you for the update on hopefully what will be the good news on the bill to help us out with getting through the pandemic here. Let's go to the consent agenda number 10. We've got a handful of things to talk about. Presentation of minutes, City Council's regular meeting minutes from March 1st, a motion to waive reading and adopt those minutes. Regarding reports or minutes of meetings, we got 8. Again, motion to receive and place those on file. Department reports for February 2021, we've got 11 different ones, and the recommended action there is a motion to receive and place those on file. We also have a summary of the verified bills for the month of February for $3,866,951.39. Recommended action there is a motion to receive and place that on file. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Kurt.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Darla. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. We have several formal items tonight, starting with A, acknowledge the bequeaths of $73,894.54 to both the police department and the fire department from the former city council member Jim Toddy. A motion is going to be to deposit the funds into the police and fire capital funds with the understanding that both the police and the fire chiefs will provide further direction in the future regarding projects to be funded and proper recognition of Mr. Toddy's bequeath. So I'm looking for anything else you want to say. Greg, you touched on that earlier in your manager's report. And thank you to the family of Jim Toddy and all those out there to help support the city as well. Greg?
I think not, other than, in talking with both chiefs. First, they both turned their forms dutifully over to the city clerk and said, we're not sure this is for our department, but we're quite surprised when Jamie checked with the insurance company and said yes, indeed. The intent is indeed that both department heads would be back to city council with a presentation. I think consistent with Mr. Toddy's wishes, we want to give fairly broad latitude, but still with ultimately governing body approval. And I think it's fair to say on behalf of both chiefs that they want to make sure that either through capital investment or programmatic initiatives that otherwise wouldn't happen, this isn't meant to supplant regular operating budget, that they want to be sure to bring something back from each of their departments that would have a lasting impact in the community.
Great. So looking for a motion to deposit those funds into their capital funds. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion, Kurt.
Bill, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion regarding this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I know Darla's not here, so we'll assume that she's a no vote right now because she stepped out. All those opposed? Motion carries. Let's go to the next one, which is B, the resolution authorizing the submittal of a Wisconsin Assessment Money, or WAM as they like to call it, grant application to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for 606 Parkway Boulevard, the former Paragon Electric Building. This is a motion to authorize the staff to submit the application to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources.
You have the resolution. I'm sorry, in your packets, I'd like to ask Ms. Runge, our Community Development Director, to come forward and give you an overview of the application.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay. This application is in conjunction with the site assessment grant that we've talked about before as it relates to the Paragon building. So the Wisconsin Assessment Monies Grant will be a matching grant for assessments on the property, specifically relating to soil testing and building testing. So the soil testing has to be bunched together kind of as a group with the building testing, which would be looking at asbestos and lead-based paint and those kinds of tests for the structures on the Paragon property, which we're talking about specifically the eastern section of the property that we have long been looking at, buildings B and C. So as a function of the WAM program with the DNR, there is basically a resolution by the community that will be applying, that the city is supporting that application of submittal, and obviously we identify a responsible party, which is the city manager, to be the person that's the contact person at the municipality level. And that's what this resolution is authorizing, an application to move forward, supported by the community.
Does that also cover mold inspection too? You mentioned paint and you mentioned
Yeah, that will be
asbestos.
it will be folded in, but we're primarily looking at the soil testing and asbestos as the primary funding.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to
Yep,
clarify because we
right.
talked about that before. So, all right, thank you, Elizabeth. We have a motion to authorize the staff to submit this application to Wisconsin Department. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to authorize staff to submit the application to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bonnie. Because this is a resolution, let's have discussion. Any discussion first?
Yes.
Thank you. Adam? Sorry.
This is a matching grant, you said. So what is the estimated cost of the project that's going to be on the hook for the city?
We don't have a cost yet. Right now, we are gathering that information for the site assessment grant, which will be due April 1. So all of that is right now happening. We're basically submitting a grant for the estimates. The site assessment grant has a max of $150,000, and so there's a 30% match, and that's what this grant, the WHAM grant, is for. So this will be the 30% match. So at this point, we will have the site assessment grant, the SAG, and this WHAM grant. So those two will be matching each other. So at this point, we don't have a match that the city will be paying.
So we're on the hook for nothing?
Right now, nothing. That's correct.
Good goal.
Okay.
Thank you.
0% of it yet to be determined.
Right. So there will be a maximum that, the grants just won't cover ultimately, but we don't know the total number of demolition or asbestos abatement or any of those things. But this just gets the ball rolling to have an idea of the cost of those things, and they will be able to mitigate a certain amount.
And once we know what's there, what is our responsibility to this? So once this grant, I'm sure there's got to be something tied to it that reveals that there's asbestos, that there's mold, that there's something. Are we responsible for the removal of that?
We will have $150,000, which is the cap of the SAG grant, which is not this resolution. So we'll be applying for that. So we will be hopefully awarded for that $150,000. And so we're submitting a budget tied to that. And so we will pick and choose what we can afford essentially with that $150,000. And then the matching 30% from this grant, this resolution, the soil testing that it can pay for. So we're basically picking what we can afford with the funds allocated that we are applying for. Does that make sense?
This will allow us, is what I'm hearing you say, this will allow us an opportunity to know and assess what that whole project
Correct.
could cost. We can then elect whether we want to go forward
pick and choose what
or
we
we
can.
sell it to a developer. They know then what they've got to do.
But we're not on the hook to remove any of that necessarily tied to this grant.
Right. It's really just identifying what we don't know at this point and then what we can afford to do with the grant funding that hopefully we will be receiving.
But it also provides us a clear-cut picture of what path and direction we're going to go to create a strategic plan, which if we take some actions, it'll immediately bring back revenue to more than cover the city's fair share of their
Any other
obligations.
discussion on this proposal? Okay, we got a motion, we got a second, we had our discussion. Because it is a resolution authorizing the submittal, I'm asking Jamie if you could do a roll call.
Adam Huskey,
Aye.
Kurt Andrews,
Aye.
Mark Bittner, Kay Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulunis.
On to C, it's a project acceptance certification for 2019 Environmental Improvement Fund project. That's on 14th Street between Lowell Street and Hawthorne Avenue. It's a DNR plan and specification approval number S-2018-0703. Our motion is to approve the project acceptance certification and authorize signature by the city manager. Is that in our packet, Greg?
Yes, it is.
Thank
and
you.
Mr.
Is that in
McDonald,
pack number 97?
yes,
Nope.
page 97, and the next agenda item is page 98.
Got it. Thank you. So do I have a motion to approve the project acceptance certification and authorize the signature by the city manager to move forward with this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Darla. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Bill, any discussion regarding this?
Right here.
Thank you, Bonnie.
We just had work on that. I don't understand. What kind of work are you doing?
This is basically whenever we get funding assistance, whether it's principal forgiveness or low interest loan monies through the Environmental Loan Fund or Environmental Improvement Fund, once the project is completed or shortly thereafter, prior to the state closing it out, it's necessary for the council to effectively accept the project based on the engineer reporting it's completed satisfactorily. This is basically one of the last pieces of paper or electronic filings that goes into the file for the project.
So it's like a formal step we take before getting any grants in that?
No, we've already received these funds. We've done our draws. It's built. But this is saying at the end of the day, and think about it, this goes to the state and then on to the feds because it's U.S. EPA money that helps subsidize this program. Yes, not only has some local authorized representatives signed it, but the local elected body has affirmed. Of course, you're fairly familiar with this area, on your street actually. Yep, it was done, and on behalf of the community, based on the recommendation of the engineer, we are accepting it. Kind of puts a period at the end of the project.
Any other questions? Okay, we've got a motion to second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. We have another project acceptance certification for 2019 Environmental Improvement Fund project. It's the digester and the return active, it's a sludge system. It's the RAS. Improvements at the wastewater treatment plant, DNR plan and specification approval number S-2018-0682. It's in your package. It's number 98. I'm looking for a motion to approve that project acceptance certification and authorize the signature by the city manager. Again, it's like a closing document, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I told Mr. McDonald he couldn't bring the film, but he'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
And thanks for letting me butcher that as I was reading all of
that
those things.
That good old returned activated sludge system.
Yes, Thank you. So with that said, do I have a motion to approve the project acceptance certification and authorize the signature of the city manager?
So moved.
Thank you. Bonnie, do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you, Mark. Any other discussion regarding this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It carries. Thank you. Moving on to E, which is purchase authorization for replacement front end loader for Public Works Department, which is a 2021 budget item. It's budgeted at $260,000. The recommended action is a motion to authorize the purchase of the Volvo Model L120H from Airing Equipment Company in the amount of its quoted price of $245,750, which is less than what we budgeted, inclusive of accessories as identified, and inclusive of a $31,000 trade-in allowance for the 1999 Volvo loader that's being replaced. So that's what we're looking to do, and we're looking to make a motion to authorize the purchase of that. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to purchase front-end loader L120.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bonnie. Let's have some discussion. Any discussion regarding this?
Just a brief comment, if I might. I asked Mr. McDonald for a little more information. As noted on the agenda, it is a 1999 model. It has a total of 16,695 hours of operation on the engine hour meter. So, and we do have 3 loaders in the fleet at Public Works. This is the oldest, a 95. We also have a 2008 and a 2016. And again, like we discussed at budget time, this is one model larger, heavier than the loader it's replacing or than the other loaders, all of which are Volvos, similar size Volvos. This one's one step larger because next year we're due to replace one of the 2 city snow blowers that are mounted on the front of the blowers. on the front of the loaders, and the new blower units are heavier, partly due to air emissions issues, some things that required that they beef those up and make them heavier. This machine is appropriately sized for that, as was noted in the memo from Mr. McDonald. We have two blowers, one essentially, the older one, it's getting ahead of it, but next year when we replace it, the older one gets put in a backup capacity. They aren't typically both out on the street at the same time.
And Jim, can you clarify how long the life expectancy is typically as we're looking to buy a new end loader?
Well, as you can see, we're going through one about every 8 years.
Okay.
And that's probably about typical for our usage of them. This one is a little bigger, so we're hoping it'll last a little bit longer. Won't wear out quite as fast.
I just want to make sure that the folks understand it's a lot of money, $260,000. So it's not like you do it every year.
A new front line loader every 8 years, but with 3 of them in the fleet, they're cycling out at 20 to 24 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Explain that then, because it says it's a model 19.
Mark, can you pull out your thing?
Model 1999. So we replaced. It's more than 8 years to me. That's
for that particular one. Yes,
okay. That particular one. Okay.
Over 20.
I don't want to mislead.
Each one in turn would be replaced after about 20 years as well.
Good. 20 years.
They seem to average out every 8 years we're having this discussion.
Understand. Thank you for clarifying that. Adam?
How many snow blowers do we have out? We have what, 2?
We have one large one that's out at any given point in time. We have 2 very similarly sized. When we say these blowers, these are those that pick up the windrows.
Mm-hmm.
We also have smaller blowers, like on the front end of a skid steer or the tool cat, for example, as well.
2 of the big ones.
Yeah, 2 of the large ones, yes.
One is primary, one is backup.
Yep.
You don't typically see both out at the same time.
I don't think that's ever happened.
Okay. I was just wondering, because if this is the next model up for the next snowblower, if the second snowblower had to be replaced, would we be replacing subsequently another front end loader at the same time? Because we have 3.
Okay, conceivably, but I don't know that as long as we're only operating one of the snowblowers at a time, this larger unit, assuming it's running, should be able to handle either one. So if one runs a cinder block through it and is laid up for a little while, then the same end loader should be able to go get the other snowblower that's in reserve and use it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Should or could or will?
Or all 3?
We hope it doesn't hit that cinder block, but if it does, yes, it will.
Okay, but one of the other front end loaders could hold one of the other snow blowers to get us through. Not that we got to buy another front end loader to get us through that period of time.
The existing end loaders can handle the existing snow blowers. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion regarding this? The good news is it's $245,750. And it's down from the budgeted $260, so that's good news. And we're also getting a trade-in.
On that point on the trade-in too, I think we owe some credit to your department too for maintaining it so long, because you're getting a pretty good trade-in price for the value of the unit of $31,000, which helps us save some of the budget.
And while there is a benefit, it's good generally to standardize equipment. So you've got like all Volvo replacement filters, belts, whatever the parts are. Do note, it should be noted, especially for the public watching, there were quotes obtained on Caterpillar, on Case, and on Volvo. And the lowest price option out of those is the Volvo from Airing Equipment Company and they made sure to provide a pretty nice, the highest trade-in allowance on that as well.
Yeah, it's about $50,000 less than the Caterpillar.
Yeah,
that's a good number.
I don't buy front-end loaders, but I always associated Case as being sort of the lower cost tier, but the Volvo, they're close. The Case was only $12,000 more, but you're right, the $52,000 more for the Cat.
So we have a motion, we have a second. No other discussion? All in favor of the motion to authorize the purchase, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, and thank you for saving us some money in our budget. Moving to F, ordinance to repeal and recreate section 4-1-6 of the municipal code, quote, snow and ice removal, unquote, to clarify property owners' responsibility for the removal of snow and ice from public sidewalks adjoining their property, and to provide for the forfeiture of $150,000, sorry, not thousand, 150. I'm back to the front end loader. I apologize. $150 for the second and any subsequent violations of the same subsection of that ordinance in any winter season. So let me say that again. If we're all responsible, and we've updated the code to make sure you remove your snow and ice from your sidewalks, as well as in front of your driveway that's impeding the sidewalk. And if you got a corner lot, you got to do both sidewalks. If you don't do that, the city has the right to come and clean it. They're going to bill you for that. If you, again, violate that ordinance to keep your fellow citizens safe when they're doing their walks, there is going to be a subsequent citation, I believe, correct? That's what we talked about.
Yes.
So a motion to waive the reading and adopt the ordinance. Why don't we go ahead and read the ordinance, and then we'll do, if that's okay, then we'll do a motion and second and discuss that.
Okay. You want us to read the existing language as well as the added, Kurt?
Yeah, why don't we do that? I'll tell you what, why don't we just do the changes, because I think everybody's aware of the 24 hours to remove.
Yep.
But you can go through the second violation and what that means as well. And what why we charge what we charge when we do remove the snow. And it really is not a profit maker. It is really just to cover the cost of staff to go out and do that. In fact, we're probably undercharging. But
and I think we realized from the discussion at the work session, the February work session, that internally we need to look at this, because I don't think we have been fully recouping the administrative costs. But I'll just, if you will, Len, as the existing ordinance provides that the cost for that removal include the city's reasonable cost for establishing an incident report or file for the violation. Before sidewalks get cleared, when there's going to be a bill issued, it is photo documented. Everybody carries a digital camera in their phone now, so it's photo documented. The billing also is meant to include site inspection, documentation of the violation, producing and mailing the related billing, in addition to labor, equipment, and material costs incurred in clearing the sidewalk. The added language, which would be the result of this amendment, is for the second and any subsequent violations, third, fourth, whatever, of this section within any November 1 to April 30 period. We know sometimes winter weather in Two Rivers extends beyond that, but November 1 to the end of April seemed reasonable. The owner of said property may be subject to a forfeiture of $150 plus court costs, in addition to any billing for snow and ice removal by the city. And we also made clear here that the police department or the city engineer may enforce this section. And by the way, I checked with Chief Kohlmeyer last week, and $150 fine or forfeiture, once you add in the court costs, translates into a $250 dent in your wallet or checking account. So it's about $100.
So the rule of thumb is just shovel your driveway and sidewalk within the 24 hours, or your section of the driveway that hits the sidewalks within 24 hours, correct?
Yeah. And again, as you pointed out, Kurt, on those corner lots, it's not just your sidewalks. In fact, also amendment back a few years ago extends that responsibility to the base of any handicap ramps at the corners. And that's
So I'm looking for a motion. We've already read it, so I'm not going to waive the reading, but a motion to adopt the ordinance as read. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Kay. And do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Darla. Any other discussion regarding this?
I just want to, I was looking for this before. Do you give written notice or something like that, or do you just remove the snow and then bill the owner?
Typically, it's complaint driven, and if more than 24 hours have passed, it's just plowed.
We just publish a notice, a reminder every year. Puts that in the
We remind people to use the mic, so folks. Sorry.
And Greg puts that in the utility bills with notices and newsletters. But there is no specific notice to individual homes.
Okay.
Part of the challenge with notice is because it's snow and it's dangerous and it's ice and you've got people walking, we got to get it off. We got to get it off.
And again, we discussed at the work session, I think that, not to make it too complicated, that still doesn't mean if it's on a weekend, the public works crews have been in, they've done a full plowing of the city, say on Thursday and Friday, someone complains about an unshoveled sidewalk, it still won't be out of the question for the police department to knock on a door and say, you're in violation, get your sidewalk shoveled, as opposed to either calling in a crew on standby and overtime or waiting until Monday. So we're not going to rule out the aspect of some communication, but the general rule is the city gets a complaint, and face it, maybe it'll change now. There have been some frequent flyer properties that are notoriously not cleaned after storms. No, the ordinance and the notice Jim mentions is considered fair warning, and that's it.
So this is just to make sure we all behave and do what we need to do. Can you do an example of what we saw Manitowoc was going to charge?
I believe it was termed as the charge, not the fine, but the charge was, I believe, $375 for second and subsequent offense.
Yep. So this is not obviously as severe as that
Per
one was.
advice of the city attorney, we want to keep the billing for service at the legitimate cost that can be documented. You want to go beyond that into the realm of the punitive, which this intends to do, if approved by council, then it's a fine, not a charge. Forfeiture, not a charge.
Adam?
Two things. First, I should have brought this one up at the work session, and that is, how do we allocate blowing snow, or how do we take that into consideration? So a snowstorm comes, it's been gone for 24 hours, but it's still blowing snow out there. Are we attacking that, saying that's part of the storm, or are we saying 24 hours after the blowing storm, or the blowing snow stops from that storm?
You know, you're right. The code as it's written does not address that. It talks about specifically, a snow event. And
once a storm ends.
Right. You could end up with your sidewalk blown solid. I can't disagree there, Adam, and would not be adverse to a further amendment of
Tim's coming to
or
the
sending it
microphone.
back.
Whether coming down vertically or horizontally, it's still a snowstorm.
Okay.
But if there is a lot of stuff blowing around, we treat it pretty much the same way, although we spend a little more time trying to knock on doors if possible.
Okay. So you consider that after?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second thing is, I'm not a fan of the notice, no notice. Either we give notice or we don't give notice. It shouldn't be the time of the week, weekend or weekday. It's either we do it or we don't do it, in my opinion. I don't like that.
You mean direct contact?
Correct.
Okay.
Because we're giving notice to some people because it's a weekend, and then some people during the week we're not giving them a notice.
I just use that as an example. I still
Yeah.
I don't know that we want to get into the business of calling in public works crews.
If it's really convenient for my guys, they'll go tell somebody that, hey, we're headed in your direction. But that's only if they're within a block or so and getting there. That's if they see somebody.
Build on that. Do we discuss, because we've got some landlords sometimes who have tenants, who the tenants are either responsible for it or they're not because they're not there and the house is just empty. We talked about notifying both the owner, if we notify, as well as the person living there. And if the person living there we can't reach, did we not talk about making sure we send a notification to the landlord?
You're talking about some very expensive notifications at that point, though.
Well, they're going to get billed. They're going to get a bill.
Yeah, but it'd be much more if we have to go through all of that notification. Because that's the expensive part. You know,
I understand.
It might take 15 minutes to run our blower down the sidewalk, but you can spend an hour or more tracking down who owns what and where.
So in all cases, we're going to try to notify them in advance that you need to clean your driveway or sidewalk, or we'll clean it.
Only if they're there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
I hear what Adam's saying as far as that equity issue. we do our best. It's not going to be entirely uniform. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that it is. If I could, the other thing we hear from people once in a while, I get it a lot. There's some folks that don't have the physical abilities to clear their own walks, and they have to make arrangements. But when the ordinance speaks to, remove all snow and ice from the sidewalk within 24 hours. Such sidewalk, it doesn't mean a 16-inch wide path. The sidewalk is however wide the sidewalk is. Now, nobody's going out with a ruler and saying, oh, you missed 2 inches, you kept your blower away from the sod. But the expectation is that'll be a full width clearing. And if you've seen folks that either use the motorized or manual wheelchairs, I think we all appreciate if they're going to have mobility, you got to clean the ramps and you have to clean the sidewalks to full width. And that is, as we all know, one of the great things about Tours. It's a great walking community. It's accessible, and we have winter. So it's meant to make sure it remains accessible.
The other discussion regarding the modifications we made to the ordinance?
I still think the notice, no notice is it's an unfair advantage to some versus others. If you're working third shift or the weekend, you have a less a chance of getting notice versus everyone else. I don't like it.
I don't understand what you're saying. It doesn't say give notice. It just says.
It just said they're going to give notice, but they don't have to give notice. So they can give notice if they feel like it. They cannot give notice if they don't feel like it. That's what they're saying. They're going to try to give notice.
I think the word was try.
It's trying,
yeah,
but
okay.
That's an unfair advantage. So if I work third shift,
right,
there's a less chance anyone's going to knock on my door to tell me.
Yeah, okay.
Or weekends because I get an advantage because
this is
public works
kind
ain't coming in.
a complaint-driven thing. It's a complaint-driven thing. I mean, like, most people aren't going to complain about it even 24 hours after the snowstorm, but they're probably going to complain about it 2 days after.
Unless you get neighbors that feud.
What?
You get one of those.
It happens.
Okay. Yeah. So we got any other discussion? I hear what Adam said. I hear what Bonnie said. Any other discussion?
I would just say, too, part of the impetus for this was there aren't a lot, but we've seen a few property owners, a handful of rental property owners, where they're routinely on the list and getting the bills. And you think about it, you hope everybody's a responsible property owner, but if we only happen to catch you about every other snowstorm, and we're just billing actual cost or maybe falling down until recently and not doing that, you're almost better. If all you care about is the financial end of it right now, you're almost better off to play the odds and take your chances. That's probably cheaper than having a contractor come and clear your sidewalk. That's not how we want it to be. So anyway.
The city doesn't want to be in the snow removal business.
The goal here is not to generate revenue. It's not to be in the snow removal business on sidewalks. It's to obtain voluntary compliance.
Any other discussion? Well, because this is an ordinance, Jamie, you are going to be put to work here.
Robert Andrews.
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
Kay Coach.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulunis.
Aye.
Adam Husky.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you for the conversation and getting us updated as well. Let's move on to G, the public hearing to consider zoning code ordinance text amendment to allow small wind energy systems in exterior side yards and yards as conditional use in the I-2 industrial district, already a conditional use in rear yards in that district. The motion is to set the hearing for Monday, April 5th, 2021 at 6 p.m. here, I believe, right, Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to set that hearing regarding this subject?
So moved.
Thank you, Bonnie. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion regarding this?
We'll present more detail at the next meeting, but both of these amendments that you're looking at, these next two items on the agenda here, relate to interests by private businesses wanting to make capital investments here in the community. And there's a little typo in this, but it's just setting the hearing, so I don't think it's of consequence. This would make it possible as a conditional use to get approval for a small wind energy system in an interior side yard or a street side yard. We missed a couple of words there. As a conditional use in the I-2 business district. Right now, the only place that a so-called small wind energy system can go in I-2 is the rear yard. By the way, the ordinance defines a small wind energy system as not exceeding 170 feet in height to the tip of the blade if the blade on the wind tower is straight up. So 170 feet in straight up position. They do have to be at least 110% of their height away from the property line. So you need a pretty spacious side yard, be it a street side or interior side. It would still be subject to a conditional use permit, review recommendation by the Plan Commission, and action following public hearing by the City Council. And this does relate to a possible development activity at our Woodland Industrial Park. Hopefully more to come on that.
Thank you, Greg. We look forward to the public hearing, and anyone who wants to attend, please do so. All in favor of setting this for Monday, April 5th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We got a second public hearing for the same, is that the same evening? Because I don't have a date on here.
Actually, the reason this is listed that way, the first one, there's a business interest, and the business, as of the Plan Commission meeting last Monday, had already made an application and filed their permit fee seeking the ordinance amendment. On this one, we're, again, our city planner, community development director, Elizabeth, has been in regular discussion with the realtor who's working with the prospective buyer. We have not seen their application yet, so seeing how it was on the Plan Commission agenda, it's in the minutes that are in front of you. It's not a required action of the council to set these hearings. It's sort of our protocol or practice. Asking the council to basically give staff direction to set that hearing for as soon as possible following receipt of the proper application. So council,
as soon as possible with enough notification to the public, correct?
Right. If the application and fee came in tomorrow, it'd be on the same agenda on April 5th. If not, this way you've dealt with the Plan Commission recommendation. It's in the queue. I guess the only downside, if for some reason this prospective property purchaser decides against this, we should close the loop by coming back and saying, you can either do it now just for the good of the order and having an ordinance that's more business friendly when it comes to dog kennels, or wait. So that's the reason this one's a little different.
So I'm sorry I jumped to the date before I even read the thing, but it's the public hearing to consider zoning code text amendment to add commercial kennels as a conditional use in the B2 business district, and Greg just described there is an interested party in potentially doing that. But the motion was to direct the staff to schedule a public hearing following the receipt of the application from the interested party, no sooner than the allotted time, which would be 10 days.
Correct. We'd have to meet the statutory notice requirements for the hearing.
Right. So it would be no sooner than 4/5, but we don't know the exact date.
Correct.
So that's what we're making a motion to approve.
That's
correct?
the understanding. We wanted to get the Plan Commission recommendation up to you and be in a position to react as quickly as possible.
Okay, do I have a motion according to that to direct the staff to schedule that hearing when they get the receipt of the application? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to direct staff to schedule a public hearing following receipt of application from an interested business party.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion regarding this one?
I would just note, and again, you'll do a deeper dive if and when there's a hearing, this still proposes only a limited set of properties in the B2 district could potentially have kennels, have to be an acre or more in size. And of course, the reason for the conditional use permit requirement primarily relates to noise impacts. If there are going to be outdoor kennel runs, that sort of thing, this conditional use would allow for some tailoring of, as long as it's, we have to be consistent in our approach now with conditional use permits, as the city attorney will remind you, but varying things like the hours that animals can be housed outside, for example.
So can I ask a follow-up question? We're still talking about questions here. If
Sure.
I'm a neighbor or neighboring business or whatever, do I get notified also that there could be potential application for someone a half a block from my house doing outdoor kennels that I want to maybe be at that public hearing?
Yes, in addition to the published notice, notice by city ordinance is sent to all owners of real property that lies within 200 feet of the boundaries of the parcel in question.
So they
There
can
probably
have,
won't be a whole lot out at the edge of town. Sometimes in town, it'll amaze you how many people get notice on a 200-foot radius.
not knowing the application and where they're going is why I brought it up, because we're giving the authority to take the application to the hearing, but we don't know where exactly they're going, which is fine.
Correct.
This body doesn't.
Mr. President, Bill, it is, I commend the Planning Commission and the plan, because they're being very proactive for, all those details will be very detailed, exposed during the public hearing. Everyone will know exactly where it is. The building itself shouldn't be a problem, will be an economic boom.
As long as the public was notified within a 200-foot
Yeah.
radius that they could come to that hearing for that
If there is
reason.
public to be
Okay.
notified.
That would be part of the notice process.
I was just going to say, the only public hearing mentioned here is on a zoning text amendment.
Thank you. Thank you. I got ahead of myself there. You're right. This would change, thank you. This would change the text of the zoning code to allow a conditional use application. Then you will get an application with specificity. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I got it. So, yeah, the confusion was you're blending both of them, and it's really just one right now.
This is just
It's
the
talking
text.
about the ordinance significant to change potentially,
Yep.
not knowing where it's going to exactly be.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jack.
Thank you. So we got a motion, we got a second. Any more discussion regarding this? Thank you for clarifying that. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, Greg, we're going back for information, number 12 on the docket tonight.
We'll wrap it up quick, but you can still seek absentee ballots by going to myvote.wi.gov or contact the city clerk's office or by mail with acceptable photo ID. We're getting down there, though. It's getting closer. So rather than trust the mail, you might want to get in and make your application. In-person absentee voting for that April 6th spring election will commence on Tuesday, next week, Tuesday, March 23rd, during normal business hours of 8 a.m. to 4:30 here at City Hall through Friday, April 2, and you have to be open until 5 o'clock on that Friday. The only day by statute have to be open a little bit later is that last day for the in-person absentee voting. The clerk will be happy to stick around till 5 o'clock, past the normal closing time. And this month, because it has 5 Mondays, the consensus of the council was to hold the work session on March 29th. So right now, next Monday is open on the calendar. And, of course, you have a regular meeting April 5. The new council will be seated, and the council will hold its annual organizational meeting, by the way, following the April 19 meeting, so it'll be on Tuesday, April 20. We'll have that listed as an information item on the next agenda. The current council remains seated through both the April 5 and April 19 regular meetings.
Hey, thank you for clarifying that. We'll put that on our calendars. Do we need to go into a closed session tonight, Greg?
I would suggest at a minimum for 2 things, that discussing our contractual relationship with Progress Lakeshore and a brief discussion as it relates to the Paragon property.
And for clarification on either of those 2 subjects, would we reconvene and open to take action?
There is some chance of action on one item, yes. If folks want to stick around, they're welcome to. If there's seating available down the hall. Oh, I'm sorry. There is an item that may be appropriate for council action as to the Paragon property.
First one?
I'm sorry, and the first one, the Progress Lakeshore matter and the Paragon.
Thank you for clarifying. I knew the one was
Thank you
for
for helping
sure,
with that.
but thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so the City Council reserves the right to enter in the closed session for Wisconsin Stats 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. We're going to discuss a contractual relationship with Progress Lakeshore, discuss the possible city assistance of economic development projects, discuss the purchase of the former Hamilton property, and discuss the redevelopment of city city-owned Paragon property. Do I have a motion to go into closed?
Make a
Kurt,
mo-
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? Thank all of you guys who are coming. Appreciate it. And Jamie, a roll call.
Mark Bittner,
Aye.
Kate Coach,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Bonnie Shimulunis,
Aye.
Adam Wahusky,
Aye.
Kurt Andrews. Motion carries.
We are in closed. We'll take a 3-minute health break. Thank you all for coming out or paying attention on both the cable. We'll give ourselves 3 minutes and we'll come back and get to these couple items.